Yeah, so Scout actually is was born out of the need to do the work that I actually just talked about. So it's a platform that helps to accelerate renewable um, energy, right? Renewable energy installations by using open by using real life data, right? Um, to identify property suitability, predict installation outcomes, and reduce time spent on manual assessments. Regarding uh, solar energy and how it's being deployed in Africa, I mean, there's South Africa as well, Morocco, Rwanda, Nigeria, doing great job. I mean, Rwanda Energy is sort of based on Nigeria, just raised $3 million in October, for their solar networks that they build. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done there, and it's really interesting, right? Because people are now seeing that there's a lot of institutional funding that's coming into crypto,
Mm.
right? I think that's why that's a strategy the government is using to control it. So they're bringing the heavy amount of funding from institutions into crypto. So people who are within the crypto space are now saying, since we're seeing this support, right, we're looking to comply to regulations that is favorable.
Hello, one and all, and welcome to the Afribond Sessions podcast, a show where we talk about the latest trends and topics shaping Africa today. I'm your host, TJ Omojomolo, and you just heard from Osahon Edogun. He's the founder of Scout and also the Chief Product and Marketing Officer at CashOnRails. And we talk about various different topics as a man of different talents. We first touch on Scout and his work in terms of installing heat pumps, why he thinks his way is more efficient, and also how it's more eco-friendly compared to boilers. We also touch on CashOnRails, the payment solution platform in Africa, and the problems that they've had in the past in terms of sending payments, and now what CashOnRails is trying to do to improve this. We also touch on crypto, how it's changed their payment solutions and cross-border transaction platforms, and what he expects in the future. So, without further ado, let's jump into it. And okay, we're back with Osahon. Osahon, how's things going? Thanks for joining the podcast.
Good. Yeah, great to be here, TJ.
Awesome. And no, it's great to have you on. I think we'll have a really good conversation about AI energy and payments too.
Yeah.
People that do not know, it'd be great if you could just introduce yourself and also the work that you do.
Yeah, sure. I'm Osahon Edogun. I started my career in payments and in digital technology. Working in products that require large-scale data. Worked in automation as well and system reliability. So been a product guy for a long time. Handled projects in different sectors as well, but mostly in fintech. So over time, I've become fascinated by how um, data-driven infrastructure could be used beyond fintech, beyond the already established sectors like or industries like we know. So I got really very fascinated in energy, right, where there's a lot of inefficiencies, and there's a shift happening from just looking at energy as a solution-based business where you're looking at hardware, you're looking at uh, just hardware tangibles. So it's becoming more productized, right? We're seeing a lot of products coming out of there, and there's a huge demand. So I'm getting really interested, right? And I realized that the same principle behind real-time payment routing, building fintech, open banking, all that, bringing APIs, bringing manual tasks, manual day-to-day activities to um, bringing it on into digital for payments can also be applied for energy as well. And with the advancements in AI, we can see how it's transforming how we live our lives, and there's a lot that AI can do to help us, achieve our energy goals globally. Yeah, so
Mm. No, it's fascinating. Especially I don't hear too much about people moving from maybe fintech to energy and using AI there. And as a person that's been in energy in the past, there's a lot of the work that's done is quite manual. So seeing someone maybe see what could be used when it comes to AI and improve energy, balancing and efficiency could be great. And it leads on to my next question and the work that you do at Scout. It'd be great if you could tell the audience about the work that Scout does and the
Yeah.
market you target.
Yeah. So Scout actually is was born out of the need to, do the work that I actually just talked about. So it's a platform that helps to accelerate renewable um, energy, right? Renewable energy installations by using by using real life data, right? Um, to identify property suitability, predict installation outcomes, and reduce time spent on manual assessments. So we really need this product because installers and homeowners waste time on back and forth checks. You know, trying to check and see if a property is eligible is usually very uncertain, and inconsistent quoting is a big problem. So what happens today is if a homeowner says they want to install, say, heat pumps in their buildings, they contact the installer. The installer then has to drive. So they book an appointment. Sometimes it takes 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and when it finally gets to the time for the assessment, they drive 2 hours, sometimes even more. They get there and they discover, oh, the home is not suitable enough. We're not able to do this installation. So that's time wasted for the installer, right? Time wasted for the homeowner as well, and resources wasted. So Scout is looking to streamline this entire journey. People we're targeting, our target market is, like I mentioned, the installers, the UK renewable installers, starting with the UK, but it's a product that can scale anywhere in the world where heat pumps are installed. So the UK renewable installers are the primary target market. Home associations, private home owners, SIPAT, of the target market as well. In terms of how we differ, and if this is something any different from what's in the market, right? Yeah,
Yeah, no, I was going to ask how you differ
yeah,
and maybe how you stand out
yeah,
towards the market, just because it's a somewhat new market in terms of the
yeah.
installation of heat pumps and the renewable energy is growing. So it'd be great to understand first what the market looks like in terms of the number of businesses and
Right.
also how you stand out
Yeah.
from the competitors.
That's a very good point. It's new, and there is a lot of drive there. There is, the UK government is looking to install 600,000 heat pumps in the UK every year. As of today, I think what we have is about 80,000, and there is a shortage of installers. That's one of the reasons why that's happening. Aside that, we also see that people who are currently installing, the installers, are having challenges. Like I mentioned, the survey time, the time for assessment takes a lot of time, and we're looking to reduce that. So once we're able to reduce the time to assess, so reducing the whole period of assessing a property from days to weeks to a few minutes, right? What this will do will
Mm.
double the number of installations we're having in the UK today, and this will also and kind of push the why this is really unique is because the the app is so the app is not an enterprise app where you have an installer come down, use the app. It's an app that the property owner gets to use, right? So you're putting them in the process, bringing them into the process, right? And that's one way of actually spreading the word when people are involved when the end users are involved in the process of actually doing a transfer. Back in the day, let's use fintech as an example. Back in the day in banking, if a if somebody wanted to withdraw 5,000, they had to write a check, walk to the bank, and the real actual or do a withdrawal, right? Um, the real transaction is done behind the desk. The banker or the cashier does the transactions. But when banking evolved and digital evolved within banking, we saw people actually putting the numbers themselves, verifying those transactions, and they saw that the money actually left their accounts, right? And the recipient got the money and confirmed and said, "Hey, I got the money you sent me." So that all that experience kind of creates an ambassador from the end user himself. So if the property owners actually taking those measurement themselves, doing a survey themselves, it puts them in the loop and it helps to spread the adoption itself, right? In terms of how we stand out, there are other people too. They who currently have similar. There are other companies like Octopus. So Octopus has a similar solution, but theirs is in-house. They use within the engineers. There is no end-to-end participation from customer end to the enterprise end. It's just the enterprise who uses those tools. It's in-house. It's locked within the business itself, right? Ours uses open data and proprietary scoring to pre-qualify homes. We also give installers ready to use, ready to convert the leads and not just raw data sets. So other competition today, probably what they do is even if we have some of them that actually are allowing the end users partake in the process, what we're seeing is this end users just take information, right? And they pass it down to the company. That the company then decides if they want to go ahead or not. But what we're building is going to send an informed quotation, an informed survey, right, to the installer. So they're not looking at just information they then go on to process. They have data that's been processed and it's proper information they can make decisions on, right? And we're not just building an app that the customers just do surveys with. We're also building a platform that gets the end user to always, they're able to manage their heat pumps from the platform. They're able to manage savings on energy bills as well. From that platform as well, people can actually download the app to check if they're eligible for heat pumps, right? And from the app, they're able to see once they're eligible, they apply for the from the government grants for heat pumps here in the UK, right? So what the ultimate goal is to shorten the assessment time from days to minutes for heat pump surveying and for heat pump stall surveying, then in time reduce the time for heat pump installation from 4 weeks to a week.
Sure, no, that's amazing, and it's like you said, you're streamlining that process, and as a result,
Yeah.
you're able to increase the number of installations that the average business can do. I noted that the installations you said you're trying to do around 15K or 20K installations. That's around 15% of the government target, and I'm assuming that's by streamlining the process. That's how you're able to achieve such a target. So my question is just how you do justify that target, but I feel like I've answered my own question there.
Yeah. Right. So between 15, so let's say 15K, 20K, it could go more than that. So looking at saying, okay, we're going to actually capture 15 to 20% of the UK installation targets, right? So once we see the biggest bottleneck, so there's also an attitude problem, right? So someone told me, and a gas installer came to the house too, and he was telling the installer about heat pump, and the guy went, heat pumps are no good. Don't install. They're just not good. He was asking why. He said they're just no good. Because he just doesn't have. There's a lot of misinformation in that area. But the conversation, what I told him was, there's a market already. We have 80,000 homes who are installing heat pumps every year, right? And that is going to go up. I had a conversation with a car dealer, like a local car dealer where I live, and we're talking about EVs, and he told me, you know what, they're not good enough. They're just like there's no future. And I was really surprised he said that, because I said, why? He said, because once the batteries go bad, it costs you so much, even more than the amount of the car to get a new one. I'm like, okay. But have you seen where the battery of an EV went bad? He was looking at me like, oh. So there's a lot of information. People are just resisting because they feel like it's a threat to their markets, right? But with when people begin to see consistent adoption, right, and they think that some of those fables they heard is really not tangible, they begin to move. Their perspectives begins to change, right? So removing the friction inside the assessment will accelerate the rate of adoption, right? And we're looking at because we removed that bottleneck of time from assessment to installation, the productivity of the installers will improve, right? So we're seeing that installers will actually get better leads instead of driving down to a place to assess a property and at the end of the day, oh, okay, there's actually we're not able to do anything here. You already have that information before you even leave your house. So before you leave your office or your house to go do an installation, or and as even if you want to do like a second leg assessment, you are quite sure um, with what we're going to do, there won't be any need for a second leg assessment because it's going to be very accurate, such that everything, the micro generation certificate scheme, the MCS documentation will be done within the app itself. So once you're going there, you'll know you're going there for an installation. That's a lead that is qualified, and you're not just going to try, right? Resources are going to be saved. So there's this will also benefits large organizations, councils, and landlords to scale their programs faster. So heat pump programs are being rolled out across councils. Organizations are trying to roll out heat pumps in their buildings. Landlords, large scale landlords who are trying to build, who have estates and like big large scale property developments, are able to actually do this faster because they actually are not incurring a lot of costs trying to go do surveys here, come back, and it's not working. They have to adjust things and that. But since this app will do a lot of good to ensuring that the time to installation is reduced. So because of this, again, we're going to see a lot of adoption, right? Yeah, so this is the pipeline to achieving our goal. Because there's like I said, this something that the government is really interested in. There's regulatory tailwind behind this to push this. So yeah.
Yes, great. And what you said about adoption is key, and it's also interesting how you always have a few skeptics. That's what usually happens a lot in energy and renewables and markets that are changing. So I thought it was a very important and quite funny story about
Yeah.
the engineers and the car dealers. But leading on to this, you did mention about how a lot of the data that you use is kind of that open source and transparent there.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in learning about why you chose to go down that path, the benefits that you see towards Scout going down that path, and maybe the benefit as an industry as a whole for being open source.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about the UK energy system is the drive towards open data. And a lot of work has been done. There's a lot of data out there about energy consumption amongst consumers and people in the UK. If you check, you'll find a lot of data, but a lot of data still needs to be collected as to how energy is being consumed and how are we able to take all that data and make very insightful decisions. So I'll give you a use case. How is a local council able to predict which homes, right, within their stock will deliver fastest payback, the faster payback period if retrofitted with solar, heat pumps, or insulation, right? So a lot of councils do not know which properties. They have 5,000 properties. They are not able to tell which of these will give the best return. So they usually just a blind approach to how they go about it. So what councils have is mostly metered energy usage. They know what is being consumed here. They have the basic property info, the EPC ratings, right? But that alone would not deliver reveal speed, reveal the payback period. It's not good enough data, right? So what we are adding is we're trying to take more data, right, from the product itself. So if they were to take data from 5,000 properties, they need to get all the installers to go down there would take forever knowing how the UK system works. But with the app, the residents of these properties can actually take the data from them, measure, take photos of the walls, take photos of the windows, take photos of the property itself, right? While the AI doesn't work, right? To get the geometry of the room using recent LIDAR technology, right? To see, is this room big enough? Is the insulators here, there's a second leg to this for solar installation, which is the second leg of what we're talking about. That might be a little bit more difficult because it's about the roof, so somebody has to go up there. So the use of drones to get there is really helpful, right? To get the angle, get the proper the geometry of the roof, right? Then also there's open weather and solar data out there, right? How much energy can the property generate, right? We also want to bring installation benchmark cost ranges, savings curves, all the typical payback based on the property type itself. So what this will do is, let's give like example. Um, from the 5,000 homes, we're able to say these 500 homes, based on what we've analyzed, will recover the retrofit cost in under 3 years. This 1,200 homes will take between 5 to 7 years. The 800 homes are not financially viable right now based on the data that we have. And this is very valuable because councils can now prioritize the highest return, the highest return properties first, right? Then the installers get a target list that guarantees fastest project approval, with all the bottlenecks that is involved in how the UK system works. This will kind of help to fast track how delivery and outcomes and project outcomes are achieved. The government, PFIs, grant bodies, they get clear justifications for funding allocations. I think this kind of answers that question.
No, definitely, definitely, and it's really interesting about the funding that some of these installations can get, and I'm sure we can talk about that later on or in the future. But just due to time, I just want to touch on what you said about maybe solar installation,
Yeah,
and installations in general, but spin it towards the continent of Africa, of course, because AI could be so important and very interesting in terms of improving the efficiency of installations and also just balancing energy. I'd love to get your take as a Nigerian that's is now in the UK, but
yeah.
obviously I know you had thoughts on this. What are your thoughts on the use of AI when it comes to energy across the continent, and where are you seeing the progress so far?
Yeah, so there's progress, but it's not as great as it is over here in Europe and in other developed parts of the world. For instance, Kenya they've been working on advanced smart grid pilots and high renewable penetration. There's been a lot of work around there. Kenya
Can,
is surely one of the leading countries doing this. Also, South Africa.
Oscar, can I pause you just for the audience because some of this can be a bit complex. The smart grid pilots. Could you just expand on what that is and the work that's being done there?
Yeah, so basically, it's a smart grid. Basically, is basically having a clusters of solar panels that have been installed in several homes within a location, right, within a community, right. Then using taking all that into like a grid. So a grid basically is a collection of energy that is being generated over several locations or probably within a particular location that is then transmitted via a network that is then distributed through a distribution company to the end user. So the people who actually generate the power, people who distribute the power, they're quite different. But for solar, you can have a plant where you have, for instance, a solar plant of 3,000 solar panels installed there. That's like a grid, right? So there is a network that then transmits this into different homes. So a home could be generating solar energy that they're not able to consume, right? So that is then taken onto the grid. The fact that they have solar panels in the house doesn't mean that all the solar panels that is being, all the solar energy that's been generated in that house is being consumed here. There, the other ones that are not consumed are then move on to the network, a system that then transmits it to other homes. So there are homes that do not have solar panels on their roof, but they have power. Now the power is coming from a smart grid, right? So it's smart because they're able to. It has some level of digital. It has some a digital layer behind it where people are able to see what energy they are consuming. We're able to not just see. So seeing is at the later stage, right? People are able to predict what energy they will consume. They see what energy they've consumed. There's data basically. They're able to forecast what amount of energy will be consumed and know what amount of energy should be generated, right? So that's basically what that is. Regarding solar energy and how it's been deployed in Africa. I mean, there's South Africa as well, Morocco, Rwanda, Nigeria, doing great job. I mean, Rwanda Energy is sort of based on Nigeria, just raised $3 million in October, for their solar networks that they build. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done there, and it's really interesting. But I've not been able to answer your question, please.
No, definitely, definitely.
Yeah,
And especially that the last bit about planning and forecasting, it leads to less waste, which is so fundamentally important. And once again, efficiency, what we've talked about in general. So that's more than interesting. I'm sure the audience will can talk about that further or look into research further in
yeah,
terms of what that you're doing. So just due for time as well, I think it would be great if we could maybe move on and talk about the work that you're doing in kind of cross-border payments, cross-border remittances,
yeah,
your many talents. So if you could maybe talk about the work that you do with Cash on Rails and
yeah.
cross-border, that would be great.
Yeah. So yeah. For Cash on Rails, we'll just jump right quickly into
Yeah.
what we're doing at Cash on Rails. Cash on Rails, like I said before, it's something that's very close to my heart. Something I co-built. We started up about last year. This year, we launched in February. So today, we've processed about $50 million in transaction. We've not raised any money. We try to bootstrap ourselves. Myself, CEO Olufumi, great guy. He's been in payments all his life, just like myself. He's like really, 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 he's one of the very finest people in payments in Nigeria that I've come across. So we've done quite a lot of work trying to get our customers to have a very seamless experience when it comes to collecting payments across Africa. So because the Africa payment ecosystem is very disorganized in terms of if you're collecting payments in Nigeria and you go to Ghana, it seems like you're not able to collect. It seems like you're starting all over again. You're not able to collect payments there with the infrastructure you have in Nigeria. But what um, over time has we've been able to do is to build a single API that enables you to collect from all parts of Africa, the major parts. So today we are live in Kenya, we're live in South Africa, we're collecting South Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, Ghana, and a lot over 15 countries, right? So our target audience mostly is brands who do a lot of collection across Africa. For instance, imagine the pain a company like Jumia will have collecting payments from all these locations across Africa, right? So that's really our target market. Enterprise. We have small businesses as well. We have small businesses. We have SMEs on there. But so far, we've been able to scale by focusing on enterprise businesses. Yeah, so that's basically what we're doing, and we're also adding new products. That's the B2B leg of Cash on Rails. We're building new products which we are yet to reveal for the B2C leg of what we're doing as well.
Mm. No, that's great. And that last point about maybe how the B2B uses Cash on Rails and B2C uses Cash on Rails would be very interesting in terms of the currency flows that you see,
Yeah.
whether those currency flows are very international, more domestic, and also maybe the payment levels between the B2B and B2C transactions.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want me to touch on that?
Yes, if you could, that would be great. That would be great.
Yeah, so for B2B, uh, like it's usually much easier to, you know, handle B2C. But B2C, the in terms of business models, so the B2C will be like the banks, right? The neobanks, the Kudas, the Yopays. Um, that's like the business to customer approach when we look at it from our end as a business, right? So we have customers who are collecting payments from other customers who most probably will be within an ecosystem or could be in another be with another bank, right? So when it comes to cross-border payments within the B2C and the B2C space in Africa, that's even worse off. The best we so if you try to send out money from your GT Bank to another GT Bank in Ghana, it's not going to work. The same bank, same continent, but you're not able to do that, right? So the likes of Cheaper Cash have been able to solve that to an extent. There are other brands as well, Lemfi, able to solve that, but a lot more work needs to be done in that area, and we are trying to actually solve that problem with what we're doing with our next product.
Mm. No, that's fascinating. Fascinating. I think a lot of people maybe don't know the complexities when it comes to sending payments to whether it's businesses or consumers. So
And
that's so interesting to know.
yeah, and one of the reasons is regulation, and I think the approach to how people are building is also very is a very important factor, and it plays to why there's a lot of restriction because most fintechs are looking to build across Africa. They go to different countries in Africa and they start trying to get licenses, which take them a minimum of a year to get. And it's a lot of compliance, a lot of work. But I think there are innovative ways to build that you don't have to go into a country and start building your rails from the ground up. That may be more profitable in the long run in terms of the margins you would get from the central banks or the settlement houses in these various countries. But it just creates more friction. So it takes you. It's what then creates the problem. But when there is a collaborative approach and there is an innovative approach as to how you are building, right? It becomes easier, and it then creates another layer of regulation that will be more, I think, more collaborative in terms of the design because at that point it will be like an emerging ecosystem, right? I don't know if I'm personally.
No,
I mean,
no, because one of the questions I was going to ask is how can governments and maybe help people use these transactions more, these cross-border payments, and companies like yourself.
yeah,
So that's fascinating to know. Maybe the regulation is quite difficult sometimes when it comes to using this. So no, please continue with that.
So the regulation is usually the problem, but there's been a lot of progress. I'll say through the Afri Bank. PAPS is actually making a lot of progress, and I'm seeing a lot of collaboration with fintechs. Um, it- I think the approach was the central bank approach before, but that's too much red tape. Fintech approach, collaborating with fintechs is definitely the way to scale. I mean, there's already regulation across these countries, and trust me, regulation is not always very different. There is a lot of difference, right? When it comes to sending out money, it's complex. Me saying it's not always very different. It's an understatement, right? It's always very different. But what I'm trying to say, there's like always an underlining principle, right? And if we can have standardized compliance systems across Africa, right? If we can solve that problem where we can have like a standardized compliance, so all the regulation doesn't have to come together um, at come together to form a unit, right? But if we can have in terms of how we are able to how we're able to conclude transactions, not so we could take it in silos first and say this is not KYC. For instance, a lot of businesses who collect payments from Kenya, Tanzania, at the same time, probably are not doing any KYC for the customers that's paying to them, right? So can we have a layer of compliance that cuts across all African countries that is not full on KYC transactions, chargebacks, but is a standalone collection KYC, a collection compliance? I don't know if you
Mm.
understand what I'm trying to say.
No, no, I understand. I do.
So it's kind of bit size. So once that is, so we have like a standard across Africa for collections. Then we then go and say, okay, we develop a standard framework, policy framework for KYC across Africa. So once this approach is implemented, I think there will be progress and to move faster.
Mm. No, for sure, and that standardized, I'll say contract or legislation, regulation in general is always helpful. And it goes
Yeah,
back to what we said about, even about the insulation pumps. It just streamlines the process. It
yeah,
makes it easier for the average person because when you're talking about maybe B2C, those consumers might find it hard to jump through the hoops in terms of sending money to the right people. And if there is too much regulation, then they'll never be able to do so. So
exactly.
completely get you on the same wavelength there. And suppose this again, I wanted to maybe get your thoughts on crypto, just because
Yeah,
obviously there's been a surge across the continent, especially in Nigeria, in particular a couple of years ago when we saw some of the crises in terms of liquidity in Nigeria and the usage of crypto. I just wanted to get your thoughts first when you saw crypto, just because there's a lot of trepidation sometimes. Did you see it as potential, or did you see it as a competitor or quite risky when you were building Cash on Rails?
so the approach to crypto generally in Nigeria is still not it's still not 100% where it should be. So my personal thoughts when I saw crypto, we saw it as a potential, not competition. Because actually, there's a lot of crypto has a lot of there's a lot of adoption for crypto, especially stable coins that are able to facilitate cross-border transactions within minutes as against days with other legacy systems, right? Um, Crypto is key, is a very important part within the African, or it's a very important aspect of the African cross-border settlement system. And the reason is because the economy is highly dollarized, right? And there is scarcity of that commodity. So what crypto did, especially stable coins, was to bring another alternative to dollars, right? If we're not using dollars, crypto probably won't have picked as much as it did. So aside the speculatory part of it, using it as an instrument, which we now have regulation for in Nigeria, for instance, where crypto is not listed as a legal tender, but as like as a an in, like an instrument for speculation or that should be traded like a stock, right? Um, there's still a lot of value that it does give to fintechs, right? Um, Cash on Rails is definitely not going to say crypto is something we're shutting down. We're not using a crypto ever, but we're always looking to stay compliant with regulation, right? Within the space that we're currently playing in, and we're closely looking at regulators because to a very large extent they decide what we do, right? But definitely there's a lot of value. Um, the SEC in Nigeria taking it up and regulating it is a step. It's a step in the right direction, but I think it is to go beyond it just being like a speculatory tool and actually becoming a currency that's respected like the US dollar. Um, so if you look at it in the broad picture, an economy that's trying to de-dollarize and the adoption of crypto, it kind of looks like it creates like an antithesis. But um, before we get to the point where we are actually able to de-dollarize, what crypto has done is to give people more access to the dollar that they're not able to get from the banks, right? Right. So that is then helping them to solve that issue. So the demand for crypto is increasing because it's crypto in terms of stable coins is more as easily accessible. You can easily buy from a an exchange on your phone, right? And yeah, because of that, the price is kind of that's what's driving the increase in price and the adoption is the ease of access. So it's not competition. It's helping us get access to the dollar in a highly dollarized economy or in a highly dollarized world.
Sure, sure. And it's what you said at the start that I find interesting. And like, I think for the audience that maybe doesn't know crypto and the cross-border payments industry in general, what I wanted to ask is why is crypto, things such as Bitcoin, why is it faster compared to the traditional cross-border payments? So if you could elaborate there, that would be great.
So do you mean Bitcoin or in
But
general?
in general, just the
Yeah.
cryptocurrency in general. It's just
So
Bitcoin is the most common one, which is why I was
yeah, Bitcoin is not regulated by anybody. That's why.
mm,
So nobody is controlling demand or supply. It's readily available um, on exchanges, like I mentioned, right? And again, because of the hype around Bitcoin, people, it's the value. It seems to grow um, faster than even the dollar, right? And it's become a very valuable asset. And there's been a lot of to back in the day. So look at 2020, 2022, there were lots of bull runs where people just invested. There were lots of bull runs. The NFT market kind of boomed. So people saw how it went from nothing to something very significant. So that kind of drove adoption. Because of that, people were buying and the price went high. So people would say, pay me in Bitcoin. We had a lot of things like that. But as time, I can remember one time we did a project and we received payments in Bitcoin. And something happened to the Bitcoin network, and it kind of froze for 3 days. When it came to us in 3 days, the money was half what the value was half what was sent 3 days ago. And we had to like, you know what, take your Bitcoin. We don't want send us USDT. So that was when the surge. That was when the offtake for USDT went very high. After that event with Bitcoin, so USDT is a stable coin. So basically, it's a token like Bitcoin, XRP, or any other crypto out there, but so the value is tied to the value of a dollar, right? So for every USDT, for USDC, right, there's a dollar that is deposited in the bank, USDC, right? So there are different providers for US for stable coins. So we have the US dollar stable coin, which is the USDT and USDC, right? I'm not sure of any other one. I think there are a few other ones. There are other stable coins for other currencies as well, but these are the most popular ones, USDC and USDT. So basically, if you have one USDT, the value is supposed to be $1 in the bank, right? And there is no so you are not so there's there is regulation for crypto now in places like the UK, the US as well. But before now, people saw the possibility of sending it within minutes versus and the fees as well were hugely reasonable. It was cheaper, it was faster, it was readily available, and this is just an offshoot of the institutions that are behind it are technology first institutions who are solving issues for people rather than playing ac- playing according to a playbook that has been set by regulators, right? So at this time, there was no playbook. You didn't have to look at all the regulatory requirements and compliance requirements that you had to meet in order to build. People just built based on how they thought was the best way to build to solve problems for people, right? That's why the adoption was really quick, and that's why people were, you know, um, using it for transactions.
Amazing. No, amazing. I'm very interested in learning what happens in the future, whether we see that increase in adoption or whether governments, maybe promote just traditional payments in the future.
The
That
government is not able to, because the government is not able to. So for instance, in Nigeria, there was a fight for, like, there was heavy war between the government and crypto user. The CBN I think at the time I sent money to somebody. The first crypto calls I did, way back, and someone sent me a course and I said, okay, I'll pay for the course. So I paid for it via Naira, right? And a few months later, my bank was totally down. I couldn't access my bank. I called and they told me they had shut down my account because I did a crypto transaction. And I explained to them it was just a payment that I did for a course, and they had to ask me a lot of questions, and it was open. So the government was fighting people, right? But we knew it was not going to work because it, crypto had got to the hands of the end users, and it's decentralized in the sense that the people who actually so it's decentralized. So the concept of decentralization is there's no central system that determines where when the money goes, right? So I'm sending the there's no central wallet that holds all the money, right? There's no central wallet that holds all the money. That's the legacy system design for every bank. When you make payments to a bank account, the money leaves your account, goes to a central pot, right? Then it debits that same pot to send to the next person. But for crypto, there's no central pot. Once it leaves my account, it goes directly to the next person's account, right? And because there's no central pot to hold, the government cannot go and say, okay, we're holding all the funds in this central pot. If they're able to hold the funds in the central pot, then yes, they're able to shut down crypto. But because they're not able to hold that pot, so we have 5 million pots. The government is not able to hold 5 million pots. The government is able to hold 200 million pots, right? It's impossible for them to. So what they're now doing is to adapt to the system and stay ahead of it to ensure that they're keeping people safe, right, from fraud, and kind of see how they're adding value by ensuring that people are seeing that the government is protecting us, right, and see how they can buy, um, leverage that, and leverage their leverage their um, what's the word I'm not looking for, their um, leverage their own the resources they have, um, the resources they have in terms of legislation, in terms of institutions that they've built, the resources they have to fund certain markets, bringing crypto into the more organized stock market, through ETFs, right? BlackRock has been leading this for some time now, right? Because people are now seeing that there's a lot of institutional funding that's coming into crypto,
mm,
right? I think that's why that's a strategy the government is using to control it. So they're bringing that heavy amount of funding from institutions into crypto. So people who are within the crypto space are now saying, since we're seeing this support, right, we're looking to comply to regulations that is favorable, right? So I think there's a lot of consultations between the players within the government institutions and the institution as a whole to see how they can leverage. I will say that quickly. I'll just say this for 30 seconds. So most of the big guys in crypto today are actually centralized. So the Binances, they have centralized pots. But taking down, if you take down Binance, if you take down all the big guys that are centralized payment system, it's not going to kill crypto, because what will happen is they probably lose a few funds, right? Somehow there are at least 100 million wallets that is not within those centralized systems. Or just to be safe, I'll say 20 million wallets around the world that's not within the centralized systems, right? And they'll find a way to use those decentralized systems.
Perfect. No, perfect. And it's what you said in terms of them adopting crypto. And I think it's fascinating how maybe at first the government was very against cryptocurrencies in general. You saw so many restrictions, particularly in China, particularly in the US, and how things have changed in recent years is it's been very interesting to watch, in
It's going to
particular in
change.
Africa. But yeah, well, Hassan, we'll wrap up here, just because we are getting to that time. But
Yeah,
thank you so
it
much for
was
talking
great
about two
chatting
very
with you.
different topics. No, you too, and I'm sure the audience learned quite
Yeah,
a bit from that. And obviously, you're a man with doing many different things, so it'd be great if you could just talk about, or maybe just plug, some of those things that you think the audience will be great at knowing and learning about
yeah.
further.
So I'm really very passionate at continually build business cloud and taking it into the market, and solving those key problems for the market, and ensuring that we are able to drive the world into a much safer, greener future, cleaner future, through installation of properties like um, the heat pumps, solars, and the like. So, always happy to collaborate, to work with people who are looking to build in this field, and support as well. Also, supporting funding grants, so definitely open, right? Yeah,
No, for sure, for sure. And I'll make sure to put your details in the description too, so people can
yeah,
access you and the work that you do at Scout and Cash on the
yeah,
Rails too. But no, we'll leave it there. So, Sam, thank you, and I'm sure we'll
yeah.
talk
Thank you
soon.
very much, TJ.
Thank you. Once again, that was Osahon Edogun from Scout and Cash on Rails, and I've put his details for those who want to learn more about himself and also cryptocurrency payment solutions and heat pump installations. But that's all from the Afribond Sessions and us. Please give us a like or review if you like this episode. But for now, take care. Goodbye.